You are never really ready for an adventure.
By the time you wake up, completely alone in the middle of the desert in Azerbaijan, you're still not ready. You don't know where you'll get water from, you don't know if you'll find food that day, you don't know where you'll sleep that night. But the fact you're there,
Well, that you're nowhere means one big thing.
you've grabbed the decision-making bull by the horns and jumped in at the deep end. And as it goes, that's a whole load of big choices you've made. What's more important is you had to make those decisions without all the information you needed.
This isn't at all how I imagined the journey.
You see, in 2014 I built this bike in the corner of my living room, then flew to Romania with only a plane ticket home from Kazakhstan in 3 months' time and a 5,000 kilometre long line drawn on a map to get me there. And I won't pretend the weeks before I set off weren't scary.
Having so many unknowns about the trip, from how well my prototype bicycle will survive, to the super mundane like, what if I hurt my foot and don't like the trip, were enough to make me want to stay home and lie on the floor.
But thankfully I didn't, and the fact that I couldn't know how everything was going to work for the next 3 months made me so much more open to having those adventures that this journey was about to offer. I flew into Bucharest late in the evening and spent the first night of my journey at the airport asleep on the floor.
Start the way you mean to go on, right?
I took a train to the coast to begin cycling from the same spot 4 friends and I had finished a previous bike trip 3 years ago. This is where we finished. This is where we parked our bikes and gazed out at the Black Sea. Pretty stoked, pretty happy with ourselves for having made it. Now 3 years later, here I am again, and I'm going to be continuing this journey. It's kind of weird to be here. Kind of weird to be here without your friends. And for the first few days, as I cycled south into Bulgaria, it really did feel so weird to be out there alone. I barely filmed anything, and watching it back now, I just seem so anxious. Just pitched up in the edge of a field. I think I'm pretty much hidden from the road. I've almost got a sense of disbelief that I'm doing this. I think it's going to take a lot of time to get my head around that. But as that first week rolled on, I got to bump into a Czech rider doing laps of Eastern Europe, and I got to stay with a super friendly British expat who ran a home for the handicapped. And bit by bit, I just relaxed into it.
It's my first night in Turkey, a country that now I'm back here, I remember, I absolutely love.
And it started to feel great to just be back out there and on the road.
So a week ago I was at home, I woke up this morning in bed. A week later I've woken up, I'm 100 kilometres from Istanbul, so it's going well, it's all good.
And it felt great.
And this trip is much more, stop in the woods and have some muesli.
And also stopped to eat donuts and puddings and baklava and buns and weird pre-packed croissants.
You get hungry on a bike trip, and it felt so good to have gone from that pre-trip stress
to just enjoying it.
Taking day out to be a bit of a tourist, do the touristy things.
Then getting to cross from the European to the Asian continents on the ferry, riding up to the Black Sea coast, where I then begin a 2-week trip cycling east towards the Georgian border. I got to wild camp each night by the water, getting up early to avoid cycling in the midday sun. I rolled up and down the Turkish hills, battled through rainstorms, and made friends at chai stops up and down the country with the help of Google Translate. It was at this point, however, it became clear the Iranian visa I'd been banking on
just wasn't coming.
The border was closed after a diplomatic dispute, so I sat down on the coast of the Black Sea, got out my pens, and just started making new plans. And that's the beauty of a trip like this, an adventure where you aren't ready. I was halfway across Turkey, but could just draw a whole new line of 4,000 kilometres more cycling.
Very sunny, very hot as usual, so very nice. I've already done 85 kilometres and it's lunchtime. I don't know what's happened to me. I've become a real cyclist, I fear.
Subscribe for the next episode when the Georgian mountains persuade me I'm not a real cyclist.
I'm pushing my bike up a giant hill.
And this happens.
It's the embassy party.